In this video, I want to talk with you a little bit about the battle for your soul. But I want to talk with you specifically about the early battle for your soul. When you first begin returning to God, that early battle that you start to experience, because it's a really tentative time. What I want you to know is that when you first return to God and you begin this healing journey, one of the things that you're likely going to experience is a spirit of fear. You have likely had a spirit of fear that you were handed over to as a result of idolatry. You may not have known that you were engaging in idolatry. Most people don't even realize how many idols they have in their life. Many of those idols became idols because of traumas that you experienced in your life. For example, if you grew up in a house that was chaotic or there was trauma going on, and you had no way of being able to soothe yourself, you likely found idols to soothe you, whether that was alcohol, food, sexual activity, relationships. All kinds of things can be made idols, electronics even, distracting yourself. If you didn't grow up being able to learn how to relate with yourself, if you had to separate from yourself, if you were afraid and you had to live in your flesh and you were compelled in your flesh, you likely ended up engaging in idolatry. That idolatry was very likely at this stage in history due to the wickedness, the increase in wickedness. There are all kinds of behaviors and all kinds of sins that you have learned from generation to generation. And so you have to understand, in other videos I've explained to you the difference between the feeling of fear that God has given you in order to know that you need to return to Him, in order for you to fear Him so that you can then have peace, have His spirit of peace, versus a spirit of fear that is chronic, that compels you, that doesn't go away, that you never feel like you have relief from. You have to know the difference between those in order to understand how to deal with it. What you need to do in personal accountability in order for God to cast that spirit out. Now, the thing that I want you to understand is that in the beginning, when you first start healing, there is all kinds of stuff inside of you, on you, in your heart. There are likely intergenerational curses. There are spirits that you've been handed over to as a result of sin. And there are legal rights that the enemy has. He's just a slimy attorney. The disgusting legal system and all those loopholes and excuses and disgusting games that are played in the world's legal system. Well, you know who established that, because that's not God's legal system. So he's just a slime ball, the enemy, and he accuses the brothers and sisters day and night before God. So he is constantly trying to invoke his rights to keep you as his slave, to keep you in bondage. And the thing I want you to understand about that is that there is no power of the enemy. There is nothing that the enemy can do to keep you in bondage without you choosing that. So God knows exactly how He needs to move you and teach you and minister to you. He knows exactly how to communicate with you and how to raise these things inside of you to cause you to do the work in order to release those legal rights to your soul. You don't do it by all of this woo-woo stuff that people teach in counterfeit Christianity, pleading the blood of the Lamb, entering some sort of courtroom with God. You're not doing that. These things are ritualistic behaviors that don't have any depth, meaning, or understanding. God has a legal system that He has established. What you need to understand about that legal system and how it refers to you is going to be revealed by His Spirit, because the law is not written in a book or on tablets or anything else. It's written by His Spirit on your mind and on your heart. And so if you follow the way that He's moving you, then He can invoke defending you based on His law. Then He can say, nope, sorry, she did this, and so you don't have that right anymore. So when God tells you to do something, you do it, even if it doesn't make sense. As long as you know that He's telling you to do it, as long as you know that it stands on His word and it's coming from His Spirit, you do it. And I'll give you an example of that. I wrote about it in A Soul Aligned. Someone was trying to sue me, someone who was dishonest, someone who I knew I had handled things right with that person, And God reminded me that if someone is trying to sue you, you give them your cloak too. And that was very difficult for me. Nothing about that seemed fair. Nothing about it was something that I wanted to do, but I did it because he spoke to me based on his word. I can't argue with that. And I didn't understand it until after I did it. Then I understood that I was being brought into position to understand the heart of God, that I was being brought into position to be like Christ, not to be Christ, but to be like Christ, to do something that was extremely difficult for me to do because I was more concerned about doing what God wants from me, serving him, than serving myself or exercising my own rights. And let me tell you something, that changed things for me. It really moved me into a different space within myself, within my heart, and in my relationship with God. Now, I was speaking with someone today, and I remember this very, very clearly when I first began to heal, that God was indeed stripping me. He was having me get rid of certain things. He still does that. I still talk to you about that. Clothes, shoes, supplements, whatever, the idols that I didn't even know were idols, the work of my own hands, the work of my mind, the work of my planning, totally submitting and conforming myself, my heart to his heart, and hearing what he was raising in me. When I felt guilt, when I felt shame, when I felt conviction, I did not ignore it. I dealt with it. I did my inner child's work on it. Then I brought myself to him correctly in heart and spirit, not in my flesh. I received his conviction. I examined my sin. I examined where that came from to dig out that root. I did the very work that I teach you to do in Heart Known series. And I remember at that time, while these things were being broken, whatever that was, at this point, I don't know all that was involved, and I don't need to know. I felt the war that was going on. I knew that there was a war going on. I didn't know all of what was going on, but I felt that tug back and forth. I felt God teaching me how to keep my head down, how to stay in him, how to not get distracted by something else or go back to the world. I know what he was doing in me. I know that he was taking me out of that bondage. And I was speaking with someone today, and I don't even remember what it was that they said, but in speaking with them, I heard them say that, I heard them talking about that and describing it, that they very much felt the presence of the devil was still there, that he still had some kind of a hold. So here's what I want to help you to understand is he doesn't actually have any power. He has rights based on things that we've done. I don't know the extent of that. I only know that as long as we continue to choose God, he will have no more rights. Eventually, God is going to bring you to a place where the enemy has no more rights. But you have to keep receiving him on a daily basis because you don't even know the bondage you're in. I remember that when God first started drawing me to the Son, and I don't even want to share this because to me now, it's just detestable. But when the Father first started drawing me to the Son, I had all these crystals because, I was dying. And people who loved me, but were also deceived, would give me these healing crystals because everybody was desperate because they saw what was happening to me. And so I would even pray to God with a crystal in my hand. Do you get the imagery of that? It's so sickening. It's detestable to me now. And it's not that I thought that the crystal had more power than God. It's that I was deceived into thinking that the crystal had something. There were still things that were keeping me in bondage, having all those supplements and pills up in my cupboard. Things that, I just had no idea how much bondage I was in. I had absolutely no idea. And I thought that these things were good, right? I had jars of teas and things like that. I thought that was a good way to heal my body. I had no idea that what I was doing was putting more stock in these things to heal me. And I didn't even realize that I was idolizing things that have no power to heal me. And God was just this last resort. Or I thought, okay, take this pill and, God, make this pill work. Please anoint the hands of the doctors. It's so sickening to me now. These are the things that keep us in bondage, you guys. And you don't know all the idols and all of the things that have caused you to be in bondage, but you're going to find out. And that's part of what I help you to understand in Heart Known series, is a way in which you can understand the design that God has given you based on biblical instruction, based on the Bible, what God is raising in you, what he's doing in you, so that you know how you're being, when something is going on, you know what it is. You know what God is doing. You know the process by which he's going to heal and sanctify you, so that you don't have to be left in the dark and sitting there going, I don't really know what he's doing right now. I wish I had someone who's gone before me who could tell me, is this normal? Is it normal that I feel peace right now, but I feel super sleepy? Yes, that's normal. That's such the best sign. It's such a good sign. He's teaching you both what his spirit of peace feels like, and he's also teaching you how to rest in him and circumcise from all of that worry and distraction that you're used to living in. I just want to encourage you in this video that if these are the things God's doing with you and you're still feeling that presence of the enemy, you're still feeling that tug and the war that's happening, there are things that you can do. First of all, it is a normal part of the early process. That war is there. And it's not just a one and done. He's not just going to cast the spirit out and then you're going to be good. Remember that even when Christ did that, even when he cast the spirit out of people, he told them, now go and repent and sin no more. You can't do that on your own without returning to God. You need to return to him in order to be able to do that. So what he was saying is exactly what God established from the beginning until the end of the Bible. Return to me and I'll return to you. Return to me and I'll heal you. Return to me and I'll sanctify you. Return to me and I'll free you. So I want you to know this is normal. And it's going to happen for a while. And it's not because he can't just cast all that stuff out, but it's because you need to understand how it got in to begin with. You need to go through a building process and a sanctification process. And it's not going to be by some memorized prayer or some ritual or pleading the blood of Jesus, whatever that means. It's going to be by you learning the lesson, and then the other stuff is going to remit. And then you learn the next lesson of what he raises, and then it's going to remit. And then you learn the next lesson, and then it remits. He's going to build you just like that. And as you receive that ministry, those spirits are going to come out. He's going to cast them out once you've learned the lesson, because no longer will you be handed over to that. You were handed over to that because you chose to be handed over to it. Now you have to demonstrate your choice for him. And he's going to take you through that by his spirit. So I just want you to understand that process. Fasting and prayer is going to be your friend right there. Fasting and prayer. Getting into a fast, circumcising from the sinful flesh, disciplining your physical flesh, conforming your heart and spirit to him. That is going to be essential to the beginning of your journey, and then continued implementation of that. He's going to move you by his spirit. I mean, probably, maybe once a week, God gets me, he gets me on that. He lets me know, all right, time to hone in. And because it's a regular practice, then I just I don't even need to sit and write like a physical list. Sometimes I do. If I'm in the middle of my journaling and he's convicted me, I'll go ahead and make my physical list. But sometimes it's just, all right, I know the things, Lord. And he's got me so circumcised and so disciplined right now that, thank God, there's not that big list that I used to have. So usually I'll recognize pretty quickly, yeah, I see. I'm doing this too much and I'm doing that too much. All right, I gotcha. I got to cut it out for a couple days. That's where it's going to get to. I got to cut that out for a couple days, and I need to return to you, and I need to understand why it is that I'm doing this. And you're calling me in. You want to speak to me, so I need to be quiet. I need to clear away whatever the clutter is going on inside of me. Deal with whatever feelings you're raising to the surface, whatever memories, whatever it is. But I know how to deal with that now. And those are the kinds of things that I teach you in Heart Known series, how to deal with that, because I didn't know how to deal with it until he taught me how to deal with it. I hope this helps. I hope it encourages you and helps you to understand this is a normal part of the process. But once that battle is won, there is, I promise you, going to come a point where that battle is won, where you have proven enough, and that spirit, that the enemy cannot taunt you the way he's taunting you anymore, and you are going to feel peace. And as long as you stay in him, your life is going to become peace. And you're going to have more time than you thought you could ever have to spend with him, to trust him, to rest in him. But here's the last thing I want to tell you. The last thing I want to tell you is it's not going to happen until those idols are gone. So you have to keep that in mind. You got to keep in mind that there are roots that have to be dug out, and there are idols that have to be cleared. If you have chinks in your armor, he's going to keep working with you until those chinks in your armor are sealed. But if you have a chink in your armor, you got to know that the enemy can keep slithering into that. If you're still ingesting counterfeit Christianity through sermons and YouTube videos and, counterfeit churches and, whatever it is, if you're still exposing yourself to that, that's going to be a chink in your armor. If you're lukewarm, if you have unresolved issues, if you are unoccupied, those are the major chinks in the armor that I talk about in Heart Known series and A Soul Aligned. Those chinks in the armor have to be sealed, or you are going to continue to feel the activations and the attacks of the enemy. I hope that helps. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.